Hey, what's going on? This is Aaron Price, CEO of Tech United New Jersey. Very excited to be back live with you on this Friday. We're not. Yeah, we're just afternoon. It's getting a little nicer out. Psyched to have Andy Bhattacharya, the board member and founding member of Amplo Global. Andy, is there any chance that I pronounced your last name even close to correct?
10 out of 10.
I feel like it was like a 4 out of 10, but that's very generous of you.
No.
Where are you physically set up right now? Where are you calling in from?
I'm in Piscataway, New Jersey.
Often called lovely Piscataway, New Jersey. It's good to see you.
Likewise.
So tell people, what is Amplo Global for those who haven't heard of it, and what's your role with the organization?
Absolutely. So Amplo Global is an organization who is, we are measuring risks for sustainability programs. And when we say risk, any kind of risk, like should we even go for a program which will cost n number of millions? Do we have the capabilities? Do we have the data? We have the right data on the floor to collect, to do the right reporting. So really taking an organization and making them ready. And we have a platform, and we do like a synthesis on the platform, a simulation on the platform to simulate some of the scenarios or the business initiatives we've been investing on. So it's a little bit of like a scenario play with data, and the data you may or may not have as an organization because we haven't done the initiative as of yet. But also we help in buying data, outside data from World Economic Forum, UNICEF, Nielsen, whoever sells sustainability data, making them more vertically ready to A, make them more ready for tomorrow, B, they don't lose in the competition because they're not sustainable. And that's a buzzword right now. That's what we do. And my role is I'm the board member and founding member of Amplo Global. So we are based out of US and India around and in the US we have two locations, Jersey and California, and India we have Bombay and Calcutta.
Excellent. So I want to dive into a little bit of that, because I'm concerned that we use so many buzzwords there that we may have confused some people, right?
For sure.
So let's jump to like an actual example. If I heard you correctly, there's two sides of the coin here. You said data preparation. Mm-hmm. So I believe you said so people could like vertically integrate quickly, but mm-hmm. also mitigating risk. So if I'm UNICEF, how do I work with Amplo Global? What do you do for me?
So maybe I will take another example, but I will answer that question of UNICEF, right? So UNICEF, actually, we buy data from. So they actually have their plans for the 192 countries for Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3 programs. They would have a guideline, they have an SOP, and we buy that data to make an organization like, let's say, Cliff Bar or Wipro, to make them more ready to for tomorrow's sustainability work. So they are data providers to us. Right? We get the data, we model some sustainability models, and based on the size of the organization, small, medium, large, we tell them that, hey, what's next for you, where you're missing, where the heat map is. That's what we are doing for an end customer.
That makes sense. And then on the risk side, tell me a little bit more about how you help people predict and manage organizational risk.
Fantastic question. So there are three risks. One is, of course, do we have the capability? If I embrace this, first of all, should I embrace this? Will it help me in top line and bottom line? Sustainability.
What's the this in that example? What's the this we're talking about?
So when we are saying that I want to be a green company, do we need to be a green company first? I need to know that, right? Do I need to be a green company to hit the, like, becoming more green as a balance sheet discussion? So that analysis we have to do. That, do we need to be sustainable? Do we have to make ourselves green? Then the larger ecosystem will be green, right? That's of course.
Have you ever worked with a client and the answer to that question is no, it doesn't make a sizable enough difference that we should proceed?
It's always an yes. It's always an yes. Be in the value chain. That's the real, right? To be in the value chain, be it a tier 3, tier 2, tier 1, OEM, distribution, customer, consumer, everybody wants to be in that zone of being green.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing, the measure of the balance sheet and the doing the program, what risk we have, what kind of investment we have to make to be in that scope one, that being mandated by World Economic Forum or UNICEF or United Nations, right? That's the first risk. The
Yep.
second one is that when I want to do the scope one successfully, do we have enough data? Do we have enough? Do we collect enough data? That's the second risk analysis. Are the data right? Is the data garbage in, garbage out? Right. That's the second risk. The third risk is the overall supply chain, value chain risk. Do we have the right suppliers? Will the supplier get blacklisted in Wall Street tomorrow? Right. Is my supply chain in the right place? Do we have the right type of training and workforce to even attend this? And then when the product is going out, is it really sustainable? Is there any quality issues or not? Quality risk, right? The entire value chain risks need to be measured. You should have a KPI, target, and plan, and then you will have actual data coming in after implementation. So those are the
Yeah.
risks I'm talking about.
Got it. That makes sense. So, what are some of the key metrics? What's some of the information needed to drive that understanding and to provide the right kind of organizational reporting?
Absolutely. So the first thing is the financials, which we call the institution, wherever we have organizations that we're working with, institutional investors or even angel investors would like to see how the revenue and the financials looking like, right? Second, like before and after, before being sustainable and after being sustainable. Second is the reporting and disclosures, which we call GRI and CDP, right? And also science-based targets. These are the things that these are measured in sustainability. And the third thing that is that data which we need is the ESG rating data, the S&P data, the sustainability analytics data. Like when we are committing to a scope one carbon neutrality, is it only that we are reducing the carbon emission from ourselves, or I'm also compelling my tier one and tier two and my distribution to get the carbon neutrality done? How do you spread this measure? So these are some of the ratings we are looking for: financials, reportings, and ESG ratings. These are the matrices
So,
we are following.
so I'm assuming it's generally enterprise-based clientele. Is that correct?
It's enterprise-based. Amplo Global has enterprise-based clientele. Absolutely, B2B generally B2B. Yeah.
And so, first, how do you build trust where they're comfortable giving you so much information, especially financial information? Is that a hurdle?
That's not a hurdle, because if we are working with a public company, that's of course not a hurdle, right? The other piece is also we are not asking anything which is sensitive. We are asking something where the bottom line and top line will be positively impacted. So the CXOs and the CFOs and the chief data officers are interested to improve their balance sheet. So
Yeah.
there is a sensitivity. Your question is absolutely right, but that sensitivity, if they are sharing the data with us, it only can help them. It can only help
Yeah.
them to create the profitability analysis.
Got it. Okay. So, how does the data play a role in their strategy and in driving? A lot of people talk about digital transformation. I think a lot of enterprise customers are the pandemic's accelerated the need for digital transformation. How does your data help that process and driving strategy?
So there are two elements to that, right? One is the way data are being accepted in the value chain. It's now slowly moving from data collection, machines, people, whatever. There's so much data that we are collecting versus a persona that looking into the matrix. So now the needle is moving towards a persona-led data strategy, which means I'm a VP of supply chain. I need to see a particular data for my vaccines coming in, right? And when I see that, what data would be treated for him or her, and what data would be treated for, let's say, a VP of customer experience? Are there any overlap or not? The concept is moving towards um, data as a service, data mart, where you have a pool of data and you have like service going on from that pool. So the question is, we have so much data. The two things are important. One is the relevance of the data. who is asking, what he or she is asking, and second is the quality of the data. So that's where data are playing a role. We always have data, but now the usage of the data have changed.
Yeah.
Persona and leverage, cross leverage.
Yeah. And so how does Amplo Global, how does it sort of provide a unique perspective that helps forecast some of these changes?
There are two aspects to this. Again, one is when we are working with that data set and somebody is asking us, hey, Andy and team, we would like to do scope one, for the lack of better words, or many other sustainable engagements. And where is the starting point? Where's the starting point? Where should I start? And our response to that is look into A, your organizational readiness and the mandates that you want to go after. Second, you absolutely need to see that the data that are needed and to be supported by your organization to start with.
Yeah.
And where we are coming and giving a perspective is more of common sense to play that, okay, if I am making a product return, absolutely fill up the reason code. Very simple, silly thing. But that reason code transposes back into your manufacturing and supply chain and really gives you a reason code to know why a product is getting returned. So the perspective that we are bringing, Aaron, to your question is we have come to the basics. Basics, right? Do basics brilliantly. Make your green environment within your organization. Automatically, the ecosystem will become greener and ecosystem will become brilliant. So that's
Yeah.
the logic we're applying. Like A, are you ready to embrace sustainable programs? B, do you have the right data? C, do you have the right persona to see it and affect the value chain? That's the perspective we are bringing.
That makes a ton of sense. So let's go back to the example. I know you shared one earlier, but any other examples of engagements or clients that sort of represent that full life cycle of the process?
Absolutely. Let's talk about like drugs and counterfeit. One of the things that we deal with in the pharma industry is when these drugs are going to the hospitals, they generally sometimes get expired, right? And when they get expired, the manufacturing basis, they want the expired drugs to be returned back in. And that's very important. And what happens is if when the backward shipment is happening to the manufacturers, which are the drugs which are expired, a lot of counterfeit happens in the ecosystem because it's expired. I mean, there's a lack of a little bit of compliance out there going on. But there's a huge loss of reverse engineering from foreign countries who can copy this. So most of the manufacturers and the hospitals and the distributors, they're all working together to create a sustainable counterfeit analysis, where we play a role as in that whole simulation that, okay, if you go from a hospital to a consolidation point to the manufacturing is best, or hospital to manufacturing directly without the consolidation point. So in our platform, we will simulate that counterfeit analysis.
Right. And have you actually discovered in some cases, in that example, some major vulnerabilities?
Absolutely. There are two or three vulnerabilities we can talk about. One is when a shipment is coming in that's expired, right? There are sometimes, right, that expired drugs can be used legally in some countries because they have a 90-day or a 180-day. And think about the free service or the free drug they're getting when they're getting counterfeited, right? That's a huge. So knowing the country-specific regulations is important, which we miss sometimes in international shipments. Second, the other vulnerability is about how do I make sure that when the drug gets packaged and suppose somebody opened it, how it cannot be reverse engineered. That's something, reverse engineering is a big vulnerability, right? And third is the temperature control and the air pressure, weather, temperature control in the trucks going back because it's expired. I don't care, but we have to care.
Yeah.
It should be temperature controlled even if it's expired because it actually really doesn't help the manufacturer when it goes back to do some analysis and paralysis of the drugs which are not used. Why it's not been used? Is it a mistake by the doctor? Is it really not used because of some manufacturing defects? If you don't control the temperature of the truck, even they're expired, there's a vulnerability around there. And backward distribution doesn't do a good job sometimes to balance all these parameters.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So last question, switching gears a little bit. Why is What's the best state in the country to build your business, and why is it New Jersey?
So we have a very strong pharma life sciences focus and some CPG focus as well. I mean, we do have some focus in Detroit area, industrial manufacturing, and Houston area energy as well. But in New Jersey, some of our biggest bets that we have in the last 3.5 years have been in the pharma life sciences. So that's where we have learned the most as an organization. When we
Makes
started
sense.
about sustainability modeling and working with reporting companies, because we don't exactly do reporting, we do modeling. And once the modeling is done, the implementation happens and the reporting happens. So we make
Yep.
the organization ready. The amount of learning we have from the life sciences vertical is tremendous, and New Jersey is the best place for that.
Agreed. And as you may know, we lean in. Tech United New Jersey leans into a few of those verticals that we think that have some significant geographic strength in programs that come to market as better wellness and health and life sciences, better planet, better connected. So I'm glad to hear you fit squarely in one of those verticals, because we think we can really have an outsized advantage in a few places there. So great to connect with you today. Thank you for joining us. Go ahead. Yeah, do you want to add something to that?
I want to just thank you and your team. It's been tremendous. I attended the Property Fair last year. It's been fantastic. It's such a good exposure.
I appreciate that. It's a fun community to represent, and we have great companies in the community like yours. And so I really appreciate your involvement, and it's great to see you today. Hopefully we'll see you soon. It's certainly at Propelify, which is going to be October 6th this year, but hopefully see you sooner than that. We've got our Better X Summit coming up at New Jersey City University in Jersey City on Earth Day, with some folks that might be relevant to you, and a few other interesting things coming up, and our awards celebration, which is in May at the Newark Museum. So hopefully I'll see you and some of those watching here today in the next few weeks or months. But normally, if we're in person, I think we like to end on the high five. So 1, 2, 3, high five the camera. 1, 2, 3, boom. Good to see you. Thanks so much, and have a great weekend.
Take care. Bye-bye.